Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome, everybody, to Tiger Claw Radio. Oh, man, one morning. What a week it's been. We got stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about the PS3 just a little bit, and the online services of the PS3, courtesy of the PSN and Sony Entertainment. We've also got some chip tunes. For the first time in a couple of months, I went out to see what was going on, and I got myself some new chip tunes. So I got a compilation that we're going to go over today, and we're going to listen to some tunes, and we got a 25-minute vancast. It's going to be a great episode. Stick with us. So this is from the Chiptune Cafe, and there's a compilation called Hot Coffee, which I got just a couple days ago. I've been listening to. This is another big chiptune compilation. So how many tracks are we looking at here? 37? Yeah, that's pretty big. So we'll just take a listen, check out a couple of tracks, and see what we think. This is the lead-off track, so this is track number 1. Off of that album, and it's from Zexxerd, Z-E-X-X-E-R-D. It's called Generic Quirky Anime Op 1. So, forgive me. You're listening to TCR. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Not too bad, right? Yeah, the good stuff. And I see on this track list, there's a couple of familiar names as well. At least I see Tobakomi on here. three times. And that's Tobakomi shows up on the Battle of the Bits entries quite a lot. Very good stuff. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to go over to the Vancast, but I want to kind of give you a summary before we get there, because it's a little rambly. This is a 25-minute bit here, so for a Vancast that's a pretty long one. I started by going over the PSN situation, PSN, PS3, and that whole thing you have to kind of take with a grain of salt, because I'm not 100% on what's going on, and I'm not really a PS3 guy anymore, but I just kind of gave my 2 cents on the matter, just because. Also talked about some portable gaming, which is fun, and some emulation, and wow, what else did I talk about? Yeah, I think that was it. But I'll tell you what, let's go there now. All right, stick with us. You're listening to TCR. All right, we are hanging out in the dojo, the new studio, the Tiger Lab. The Tiger Claw Media Research Center. It is Tuesday afternoon? I just finished work, and I got a few minutes to hang out. Let me get some tea, and we'll talk some video games. There we go. We are drinking English breakfast tea from Trader Joe's. We'll give that a minute to seep. All right, I got a number of things that have been really fun.
to go over the last couple of weeks. But I want to start with the big story, which is the PlayStation Network is throwing the boot down for the PS3. Okay, now I've gone back and forth about this personally quite a bit over the last 24 hours, and essentially they're going to shut down the store for the PS3. But there's more than that. I've heard mixed things. Like, one person told me that all the PS1 games are being removed from PSN. You won't be able to buy them anymore. It's like, let's just stick on the PSN thing for the PS3. The good news is, I was talking to Alex Swingle, and he mentioned that this is probably the most, how did he put it? This is the most ethical way this sort of thing could be done, for a couple of reasons. The PS3 is now 2 generations old, okay? And they kept it supported online throughout the PS4 life cycle and now into the PS5. And so I'd have to look at some numbers, but I'm pretty sure that must be the longest running internet service on a home console, right? It's still kind of irritating that they're shutting it down for a couple of reasons. It's also the last bastion of free internet service for a home console as well. The PS3 came out at a time when paying an annual subscription service for Xbox was already normal, but it was really the only system that was doing it. And then then Nintendo jumped suit with the Switch or whatever, and of course we've got PlayStation doing the same thing. This is the last one. This is the last one you can get on. You can get yourself a used copy of Black Ops and play some multiplayer or whatever. Now, let's be fair. From what I understand, you'll still be able to do that for now. But now you won't be able to buy games. So this is what's coming next. This is a wake-up call. So this is why I like PC. Now, I don't think... I don't know. I can't trust these companies to not make me buy things twice. Okay? And when it comes to PC, I'm not saying it never happens, but it doesn't happen quite as harsh as this, I think. And I think it's harsher for me because I skipped an entire generation. I never got into the PS4 generation until Sendu provided an Xbox One. I essentially skipped, otherwise would have just skipped that generation entirely. So, especially when it comes to Sony, them shutting this down, it's like, all right, man, you're either going to get another console or you're done with console games. I gotta say, man, I just don't think it's for me anymore. I don't know. It seems like the PC ecosystem, while not perfect, is way more consumer friendly. One counterpoint that Swingle brought up was we see this on the PC as well. Steam did it not too long ago when they shut off service for the what is it now? The Windows XP, right? You can't use Steam on Windows XP anymore, and that was arguably much worse because not only can you not buy games, but you also cannot download them or even log on to Steam to play what you have. So that kind of sucks. I've been a huge Steam guy for about a decade now, and over the last 6 months to a year, I've really started to distance myself from that bastion of games. So where does that leave me? Does that leave me as a sailor without a country in terms of the video gaming global market? First of all, that is what you should always be when it comes to technology. None of these companies are our friends. They are companies. They make products, and our relationship with them should strictly be a currency for goods and services type relationship. Okay? You know how kids, when they get in arguments, they start calling each other fanboys? And then as older people, we hear those arguments and say, I'm not a fanboy. I'm a grown-up. I think grown-up things. Well, this is the bar for whether or not that's true. There's no need for company allegiance. And the reason I'm not getting a PS5 has nothing to do with my personal opinion of Sony. Be that my personal opinion, what it may be. I'm not getting a PS5 because it's not a product that provides me with an experience I'm interested in, given the price. I think you could get one of these new machines and it'll be a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think the long-term investment is there. And that right there is where it is for me. So PS3 was a good system, man, and it's still a great system at this point to get. Now that it's a couple generations old, Swingle talks about this quite a lot. How the old Sony systems, you can get the games for super cheap online, really good games for pennies on the dollar. Before COVID, I was seeing them turn up in thrift stores, like nice titles for the PS3 and stuff, turning up their stores for really cheap, which is, cool. It's still a great system because you can get good games for super cheap, but I don't know. It's one of those old things now. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it in its day, even though I'm not much of a console person now. When I first got my PS3, I can't remember if Black Ops was new at the time, but I remember playing through Black Ops when it was fairly new and having a great time with it. First time I ever played through a Call of Duty game start to finish was the original Black Ops. Played that on multiplayer quite a bit, was never really good at it, and I played it on multiplayer on the PS3, so it was with the consoleized gaming crowd. All of the stereotypes that you hear about young kids saying vulgar things when you play games online. That was very, very much what I experienced playing Black Ops on the PS3. Ring-a-ding. That doesn't make it bad. It is what it is. And I had fun at the time. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Very weird thing. This is big news in a part of the industry that I'm not really tied to. So I find it hard to put together like a coherent opinion. I mean, my opinions of console gaming and that sort of investment hasn't really changed. But this is like, a lot of the PC gamers, I think, are going to point to this and be like, see? Can't buy games on it no more. What do you think, man? I don't know, but maybe now that they're closing down the ability to purchase games, maybe we'll see a bunch of new crazy hacks you can do with the PS3. Who knows? Assuming there aren't already. There probably is already. But that's cool. I just wanted to touch on the shutting down of the store. Because, wow, now that I think about it, this hadn't really occurred to me before, but I think the PS3 store, like the PSN, I think that might be the last time I really dug an online store on a console. I checked out the Xbox One a little bit, but I never quite got hooked. When I was playing the PS3, like when it was the new console, or at least new to me, I think it was already a few years old by then, I was still seeing games, getting excited for them, and putting money away to get them, ahead of time. Like, I remember getting, the big one for me was Third Strike, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Getting that on the PS3, because it was already an old, kind of an old game by then. So this was like an enhanced edition that had really good multiplayer support and stuff. It's the first time I ever played a multiplayer fighting game like that. And of course, I just got walloped beyond recognition. Beyond recognition. But it was an experience. It was a good time. And I don't think I would jump into another console generation just to get that experience again. It's a different world now, man. Different world indeed. Okay, give me a second here. Okay, so that's PSN. Please, console people who know more about this, chime in on it. But let's shift gears and talk about some of my experiences with, how can I describe this? I had a few experiences with these like emulation type devices, 3 of them. First things first, I bought the X88 Pro X3, which is an Android TV box. Swingle got the same machine at the same time, and we both went to work. From what I understand, Swingle, I don't want to tell your story for you, but I think his has been going okay, and mine has been a disaster. Holy crap on a stick. Let me explain this scenario for you, boys and girls. The idea is you get a little box, and it's a cute little box. It's a tiny little box. I really like this thing. Looks great. You hook it up to your TV, you get power to it, you get on the Wi-Fi, bam! It's like having a phone that's everything but the actual phone. You can connect it to Google Play Store, download anything you need from the Google Play Store, and in this particular instance, our plan was to use SD cards, the mini SD cards, and flash an alternate operating system on there that would essentially boot into an emulation launcher with a front end. Wouldn't take over the machine. If you wanted to use it as the straight up Android box, you could pull that out and boot it up and be great. So we're talking about a machine that serves 2 functions: games, or load Kodi, watch YouTube, whatever. My box is doing neither of those things, which is awesome. I tried a couple times to flash the SD card, and it wouldn't boot from it. So I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll just get it so that I can watch the shows, right? Because that's really the other thing. To get Kodi and Peacock TV so I can watch the old WWF stuff, and so I got on the Google Play Store, and it won't install anything from the Google Play Store. This is after 2 system refreshes. Something is happening with my Google account where it is not recognizing this device as valid. It's like flagging it as a security concern or something. And I'm getting the alerts when I try and log in from it. It's like, hey, somebody just logged into your account from this device. Is this you? And I'll say yes. And it still won't work. I don't know. It's frustrating. Still working with it. But, I mean, you get these open environment devices, and they can do anything that you want them to, but the trade-off is you have to take time and really put in some effort in configuration. And that's what I'm doing now. Gorgeous, gorgeous box. I'm going to make this thing work. It's going to be awesome. But that's where I stand with that. Moving on from that, that's the first device. I also bought, what is this thing called now? This is a handheld device that looks like a Game Boy, and I remember these things were pretty popular on YouTube like a year ago, or maybe 2. Whoop, ring ding. There we go. And it looks like a Game Boy, but essentially it's a Chinese emulator, handheld emulator that runs like a few NES games. Okay, no big deal. Doesn't save, but that's fine. It has Ice Climbers on it. It has Spy Hunter on it, and a couple other things. This thing broke inside of 20 minutes. And it was so bad that I went to Amazon and was like, hey, I need a refund because this thing didn't work. And they're like, you know what? You don't have to send it back. It's fine. We know it's awful. You can just have your money back, and it's okay. So at least Amazon honored the deal. But that was what I would consider a negative experience. But I really want one of these handheld emulator devices because there's a lot of them. And there's entire channels dedicated to pulling these things apart, seeing how they stack up to different systems, seeing what you can and can't play on them, many different form factors, different price points. I mean, between, let's say, like $30 and $100, there is a machine for every $10 interval in that range. And each one of those machines is like a legit buy for that price point, which is crazy to me. And I just decided I want one. I wanted one. And I started doing some research, and one channel that I found, and this was pretty cool, because remember, in the last couple of weeks, I was talking about video game channels not really being a thing for me anymore. There was a video game channel called Too Many Handhelds. And Desm, I think you pointed this guy out to me on Twitter. That guy does strictly handhelds, and he was the first deep dive YouTube channel that I've done in a long time, in several years. To give you a timeline, I remember the last deep dive, and it was H3 around the time their lawsuit first started, because Ethan Klein was still like a hero in the YouTube community at the time, and that was years ago. So this is the first real YouTube channel I was like, I'm gonna just chill out and watch this YouTube channel. And it's pretty cool, man. Just a guy, just old school YouTube. You know, no sponsorship. Just, hey, this is me. Don't smash that like button. Press the like button if you would like to. Otherwise, it's okay. But anyway, he's got a couple of these emulator machines. So, enough of them to show off that it's a real thing. You know? So like, yeah, okay, I want one of those. And I made the jump, and I ordered, okay, now what is the model number for this thing? Give me a second, because I want to get it right here. Yeah, here we go. If you're into these things, and you want to look up what I ordered the Ambernick RG280V. I wanted one that was vertically oriented, like an original Game Boy. You know, as opposed to like a DS or a Switch, how you have the screen in the middle and the controls on either side. This one looks like a Game Boy, but it's fairly small. Small was important to me, because what I actually wanted this thing for was to really carry with me everywhere, to go in my pocket or in my bag, and when I'm out, I want to be able to pull it out and play like some Caesar's Palace on Game Boy, or a pachinko game, or something like that. So I found a device that would do that for like $40, called the LDK, which is the little Dragon King. And the LDK for $40 is the same machine that I got, but like half the power. And I was looking at this LDK for $40. I was like, man, that'll do everything I just said. It's going to play Caesar's Palace. I can get that thing out and play blackjack. I can spin the wheel. Because some of those dad games, man, on the Game Boy, I'm telling you, I've gone down that rabbit hole in the air before, but Game Boy was a great system for dad games, let me tell you. And that would do it. So something inside my brain was like, okay, man, you really want this. Don't go cheap. Open up everything. I know when it comes in the mail, I'm gonna play original Game Boy games. That's because that's what I want it for. I want to play the pachinko games that I have. I want to be able to play Caesar's Palace, because I can't find my Caesar's Palace game. I wonder if I put it in the retro junk box and forgot about it, and stuff like that. And this will do it just fine. But I also wanted a system that will survive long enough for my interests to jump from one thing to another. Okay, does that make sense? Like, supposedly this thing also runs PS1 pretty well, so that might be cool to play through like an RPG on PS1 on this thing, maybe. I don't know. That seems like it might be cool. But yeah, multi-emulator device that fits in your hand, and I've just been all abuzz with the notion of getting one of these things. Now, when it comes to emulation, especially this crowd, I know ethically we have sort of a mixed bag in terms of who thinks what, and I always really enjoy talking about whether or not it's good to emulate, because amongst this small group, we all think so differently, but no one has really, like, I don't really see any of us giving each other crap for for disagreeing on this point, which is why I think it's so fun to bring up. Oop, hang on one second. But then something else occurred to me, where this fits all in with the Game Boy machine. Hang on a second. It dawned on me that just last week, I was reading an email from Hemrock, who writes into the show quite regularly. And he was telling me about newly designed games for the Game Boy, and NES, and so on and so forth. And that email stuck out in my mind because the links that he provided, it was the first time I had seen these newly designed games where they were also including options to purchase the ROMs on the cheap. It's like, look, man, if you don't want to spend $30 on an NES game or on a Game Boy game, that's fine. Just $4, $5. In some cases, pay what you want, and you can get the ROM. You can play it on whatever you want. With an emulation machine, I am going to be all about that stuff. Yes, I did it a little bit with the Commodore 64 because I got the C64 Mini, and that thing plays really well. So I bought, well, let's call it what it is. I bought one really good game for the C64 Mini, but I like the prospect of being able to buy independently produced Game Boy ROMs and playing them on something that resembles a Game Boy, kind of. Because at that point, you're playing new hardware, and on that hardware, you're playing new software. That's really new all around. The only thing that remains that's being emulated at that point is the system architecture of whatever console that you're playing or buying for. I think at that point, playing a newly developed Game Boy game it's evolved into something else. Game Boy is no longer part of the picture. And that's a beautiful thing. It really is. Because in that moment, that's when my eyes opened and it was like, oh wait, there really is a place for these new games to be awesome. Doesn't have to be a ton of money for a game that's kind of mediocre. Can be a little money in a dev's pocket that really deserves it. And then if you really dig the game, you can go get yourself a legit copy for the collection. And that's what could be better. So that's where I'm at. I've been getting these things together to try and find my place, get my emulation stuff set up. And then something really, really silly happened. Towards the end of the day, this is probably like 30 minutes ago, while I was struggling to get my I was going to say while I was struggling to get my emulation box working, but that's not true. That was much earlier. But I was hanging out and I came across a piece of info that was like, hey, turn your old unused computer into an emulation machine. Like, wait a second. Let me think about this for a second. I have a tower here that's not being used. What did I even need to buy the Android box for? And I almost abandoned it as a project. And then I remembered, okay, the point was to get something portable that can be plugged into any TV. Got a lot of TVs in the house. We go on vacation. I'm not lugging a huge tower with me. But I will bring a little box that would have, maybe Contra and the Peanuts movie or something like that. The kids would enjoy. So I don't know, but I did take a look at this idea of turning my secondary tower here that's been sitting unused into an emulation device on that front. I don't know. I doubt that's going to happen, but I could do that without spending any additional money. Yeah, I don't know. So I read as much as I could before I bought any of this stuff, which I think is the interesting thing, with the exception of the Android box, because Swingle did all that research. My handheld emulator, which is supposed to show up in the mail tomorrow, I took a lot of care in picking that thing out. Sitting back in my chair in my office in the unnamed Tiger Claw Media Research Center. And if everything was functioning, I'm not sure what I would play right now, to be honest. So, that said, I'm going to throw it back to the studio. I'll be putting the regular podcast back together tomorrow, so I will see you there.
Back again in the studio. How are we making out? You still with us out there? That was a weird one because there were a couple of times in the middle of that it's just like, what am I saying? But at the same time, it was fun. So I don't know. What are you gonna do? That's TCR. I don't claim to be intelligent at all. It's just me hanging out. You know, it is what it is. All right, so let's go back to the Hot Coffee compilation and listen to some more chip tunes. But first, let's just take a quick minute. I usually do this at the 20-minute mark, but that last bit ran a little long. Let's thank the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored program, and these individuals have been enormously patient over the years, and they give their resources to make sure TCR comes back every single week. And I do so appreciate them. So to them, I offer their names in Hall of Distinguished Gentlemen. They are Hemrock, EmeraldRangers.com. Thanks, Emerald Rangers, for carrying the show, by the way. Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and Eric Controller. Thank you all so much. Stay safe. I hope you're enjoying the party. All right, boys and girls, let's check out one of those Tobakomi tracks off of the Hot Coffee compilation here on TCR. That's Ujico. Ujico. That's the name of the track from Tobakomi off of the Hot Coffee compilation over at the Chiptune Cafe. That's what it was. Where you can get that. By the way, that compilation is free. It's pay what you want on Bandcamp. So I will get a link in the description so that y'all can check it out. Get yourself a copy, stick it on your phone, whatever you got. It's a good time. It really is. Okay, so let's shift gears and see what's going on in the Failback for this past week. This one's from Hemrock. He says, Hey, Paisan, thanks as usual for another podcast. Hope your dental issues have improved. It's a bummer that your tooth was a casualty of war against sourdough crackers. Those crackers, by the way, sound amazing. Yeah, man, they were really good. Funny thing, after I lost my tooth, I kept eating them, and my wife eventually just packed them all up and threw them out. Because apparently the same thing had happened. Something similar had happened to my mother-in-law. She had some tooth issues with these sourdough crackers. And oh man, they were so good. They really were. But they were also they were hard to chew. They were hard to bite into because when you get crackers, there's a reason that crackers are perforated. Okay, they're like the little holes that you find in Ritz crackers. It's so that you can bite through them. We didn't have those, so it was just incredibly stiff cracker stuff. I don't know how to explain it. It was really good though. Oh my goodness. Yes, my wife is a very talented baker. Back to the email. She says, thanks for the clarification on the save game system with Goonies 2. I see your point, but I was messing with you. I appreciate being messed with. That's cool, man. I'm down. It was a good time. No worries at all, man. In my email last week, you mentioned that paying $5 for a Game Boy platformer on Steam was too much, especially considering you don't get the ROM. Well, you actually do get the ROM. You just need to look in the game files of your Steam folder. I'm pretty sure that all the Pico Interactive games that are 8 and 16-bit console games include the ROM. That's how I got my ROM of 8 Eyes. Interesting. I did not know that. Oh. That is another thing that would pair nicely with one of those mobile emulation machines. Okay. You've probably heard the bad news. Sony has announced they will shut down the PSN for the PS3 in less than 3 months. 2nd of July, to be exact. Well, there goes my New Year's resolution of not buying games in 2021. This may be my last chance to legitimately pick up some otherwise ridiculously expensive PS1 and PS2 titles. The games on my list include Grandia 3, Stella Deuce, Vanguard Bandits, Tomba 2, Castlevania Chronicles, and Wild Arms 2. Are you going to partake in the last-minute digital download extravaganza? You know, I want to, but at the same time, I don't, because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to hook the PS3 up, and I'm going to download the games that I really want, and it'll probably be it'll probably be a good chunk of change. Nothing too bad, but probably like $20, $40, something like that. And then I'll get some really cool games, and they'll just never get played. They'll never get played. The PS3, as it stands right now, and this is because we switched rooms. A lot of equipment has been moved around in my house over the last several weeks. It's not even hooked up. I have it here in my room, which, by the way, the PS3 has never been like something that's in my office or in my like personal hangout area. It's always been like the family console because of the Blu-ray capabilities. But now it is, like, really for the first time ever. Wow. I'm not really considering that until just now, but it's not even hooked up. Wow, I should really hook that up. There are some games that I would have liked to have gotten over the PSN, and the Grandia games in particular are among them. I do have the original Grandia already, which was the one I really, really wanted. And to be honest, I haven't been on the PSN in a long time, so I don't know what's there anymore. I have Grandia, and I have Suikoden. I don't think I ever bought Suikoden 2. I feel like I should get on that, because that's going to disappear. Maybe I should get on there and get Suikoden 2. Okay, the last time this happened was with the Wii, and we were told when the Wii was going to go down, so you couldn't buy anything anymore. And I actually bought stuff on the Wii. I bought Phantasy Star, the original Phantasy Star, and Twin Bee for the TurboGrafx 16. What else do we get? I feel like there was one more game, but there might not have been. That might have actually been it. I have to think about it. But those two games, I don't know, they actually did get played. Yeah, I played almost... I want to say almost all the way through Phantasy Star, but I don't know if that's true or not. I played Phantasy Star for about 15 hours, and I really loved it. Twin Bee got played like twice. Twin Bee didn't get played much at all. Good game, though. Should fire up my Wii and play Twin Bee again. Yeah, I have most of the PS1 games off of the PSN that I was, like, really super interested in. Like, I've got the Resident Evil Classic Collection on lockdown because I'm a fan of the original Resident Evil games, even though no one else is, including the developers of the original Resident Evil games. What was that guy's name? Forgive me for not knowing the developer's name, but one of the major developers on the original Resident Evil was like, what was asked, what about when people tell you they like the original layout? And he's like, I get embarrassed and I tell them to stop. I should look the details up on that, but... Okay. Vanguard Bandits. Why do I know that one? I think I'm getting that confused with Vandal Hearts. You ever play Vandal Hearts? It's like the strategy tactics strategy RPG where every time a unit dies, like blood shoots up into the air. I kind of want to play that game again. All right, let's get back to the email. It was fun to hear about your NES explorations. Any other NES games you've played recently? Not since that portable unit I bought was a bust. I went back and played Contra again just yesterday, and I did about the same. I got to the boss of the waterfall stage, the monster with the 2 tentacles, you know, and you shoot upwards. And he killed me. But I don't think that was because, like, I lost or had a meltdown. I think it was because I was actually using a keyboard that run instead of a controller, and by the time I got to that guy, I was like, alright, I'm kind of done. So that was it. I was mostly interested in playing one-shot games that do not require saving on that portable unit, and that did not happen. So my replacement shows up today, and I will probably be digging into the original Game Boy when that happens, because that's where my interest is right now, is returning to the original Game Boy, because that's where my favorite dad games are. How's your new Swingle-inspired Android device for your TV? It's been a disaster, to be perfectly honest with you, but that's okay. It's not doing what I meant for it to do. I worked on it again last night. I have a desk, way downstairs. See, I'm on the top floor right now. I have another desk down in the basement. That's much closer to the router. And last night I hooked it up down there, and I tried to get it working, and I ran into all the same problems. I even went as far as to make another Google account to try that. Still didn't do it. I talked to Swingle briefly, and he mentioned you got to get it. You have to connect it via Ethernet cable. So that's the next thing I'm going to try. It's not a bad box. It's really like actually just chilling out and watching stuff on it, which I did also last night, was really fun. I enjoyed that. So I think I'm just having trouble with mine. I don't think they're in total bad at all, because Swingle is working fine. If you just look them up on YouTube and check out people who are using them, they look great. I'm just having trouble with my particular unit. But again, I'm a tinkerer when it comes to these types of toys and technology and stuff. So it takes some tinkering. That's not a bad thing. I'm having fun with it. It's IT diagnosis is a fun thing sometimes. I enjoy it. Are you still using that CRT? One thing I heard recently is that rhythm games such as Parappa the Rapper do not work properly on a new flat screen television because the timing or whatever is thrown off. That is interesting. I'm not actually using that CRT. Not that there was anything wrong with it. It was just too big. My office, even though it's a lot bigger than it used to be, it's still a small room. Okay? When I set up my CRT and I play it, I'm usually I'm in a chair sitting right in front of it. So a gigantic CRT just doesn't fit well with my setup. It's a gorgeous TV, but it's not getting used, and it has to go, because it's not only is it not getting used, but it's also taking up a huge chunk of real estate that I just can't spare. So it has to go. And I don't want to just take it to the dump. I want to find somebody who can actually use it. Like if there was somebody in town who had a spot for it, then I would but come get it for free, please. I am still using a CRT though. Don't get me wrong. When we had it running, I was like, oh yes, that's right, CRTs are awesome. So I got out my original CRT, which is much smaller. I think my original CRT is like 17 inches or something. And when I say original CRT, this is when my wife and I first got together, we didn't have a TV or anything. We had like no possessions. So we bought this TV from Best Buy. It's probably like 2005, 2004, something like that. And we've had it ever since. So this has been, it's been like a side TV up in my room for years. and it's like the one that. Do you remember when I had that big run of original Famicom games? You sent me that like Famiclone, and I was playing Famicom all the time and ordering Famicom games and stuff like that. All of that went down on this secondary little TV. So what we did was we pushed the gigantic oversized TV that hurts our eyes off to the side, and we replaced it with the original CRT from years ago. So we are still playing on a CRT. The difference is real. It is real. We can feel it when we play Tetris Attack because that's a puzzle game, high reaction puzzle game that we play at a very high level. So I know you're right. I could totally see that. I tried playing, this is a while ago now, but I remember I tried playing Bust a Groove, but I have the Japanese version for the PS1 called Bust a Move. I tried playing that on an emulator or something, and the timing just being like a split second off just makes the game unplayable. So I could 100% see what you're saying. Back to the email. Any news on battling your son's MTG deck? You know, it hasn't really come up, but I'll let him know that you keep asking about it, because that would be fun. I'll tell you what I did do, though. I did actually revisit my secondary YouTube channel, Hot Tea and MTG. Yeah, I had a Magic the Gathering channel that I tried for a while, and I went back and I watched a couple of those videos. I'm actually kind of proud of some of that work. Don't get me wrong. It's you know, it's still just like YouTube schlock, but I did a video on like the Shivan Dragon, the original Shivan Dragon artwork, and like that, and my entry into the series and rediscovering some of my old cards. I haven't touched that channel in 2 years now, but a couple of the videos that I put up there, I'm really proud of. So yeah, I you know, I kind of want to go back to it, but at the same time, I don't know if I really have anything to say anymore. So we'll see. I wouldn't consider that channel dead just yet. I think I would maybe change it from a Magic the Gathering channel and broaden the scope just a little bit to include all my tabletop games. So that'd be Magic the Gathering, and then also like Dungeons and Dragons and that sort of stuff. I don't know. Yeah, Magic the Gathering is fun though. I just haven't had the chance to play in a while, because it's tough to play with kids. If you're down, we can open up Cockatrice again, or even one of those like Steam-based Magic the Gathering games with a closed ecosystem of cards. I'd be down for that. It's good times. What else we got in the email? We're almost done now. How's the new game room? Will we be getting a new room tour soon? I'm rooting for you, Hemrock. Hashtag bring back Monday Night Morrowind. Hashtag Rips Weekend in Review. Hashtag I want sourdough crackers. New game room is good. It's going good, and I want to do a tour. I want to do that. As a matter of fact, yesterday I had the whole family in here, which is, you got to understand, we have a family room, okay, that's large enough for all of us. But this room here, since I have a couple of chairs, you know, we got a couple of luxury, like, easy chair kind of things. And then I have a couple of, like, regular chairs around that. There's places for everybody to sit in here. Everybody just piled into my office yesterday. It was a weird moment. I had Sesame Street from the 1960s on the TV, which was great. Which was really entertaining, by the way, because it was like early Jim Henson at, like, the height of his game. And we had, my wife was playing Tetris Attack on that little TV. And my youngest son was just like crawling around on the carpet, checking stuff out. And the two older ones were watching the show and talking back and forth. It was a great time. We were all packed in this tiny little room. So, it's like, I like this place because it's a good, like, I hate the term man cave. I hate it so much. I set it up so that it's my space, but at the same time, it's not an altar to consumerism. I don't have the video game worship center set up anywhere. Yeah, there's a couple TVs. Yeah, I got a few games. It's cool, but it's designed to share, which is a decision that I think was the way to go. Because again, when I think back to playing video games as a kid, you know, the times that most of us are trying to recapture when we play games as older people, it really is the people that made those memories awesome. For the most part, playing the games with my brothers, with my friends, that's what was cool. So this place is exactly that. It's designed to play with my kids and my wife. Super cool. Okay, I'm just taking a quick look through the email, make sure I answered everything. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Now, I'm curious about this PSN thing because I don't really know too many of the details. You mentioned that they're what are they actually shutting down? The store is going to shut down, so you won't be able to buy things or download. You can no longer make in-game purchases or redeem PSN wallet funds on that sucks. That sucks. Pay up, suckers. Buy the new machine or go home. Yeah. We're reaching a point where when the new machines come out, they're taking away more than they're giving us by shutting off the old machine. Like, I feel like buying the newest PlayStation primarily would be just to stay in the PlayStation ecosystem rather than to get access to all their new games. Hemrock, brother, thanks for writing in, man. It's always good to hear from you. I hope your family is well. Hope you guys are staying safe. Hope you're having a good time. And with that, let's head over to YouTube and hear some of the wonderful comments we have over there. This came up in conversation last night, some of the YouTube comments, so I have high hopes for this week. A lot of times I read these beforehand, but this week I have not. Alright, so last week was 279. Contra is hard. By the way, it is a hard game. What is it about the first Contra game that makes it so different from every other Contra game? The only other game that comes close is Operation C on the Game Boy. Fight me. There's even Super C, which is like, the same game. It's like Contra the expansion pack. No other game is quite the same way. Because I feel like as soon as you make the jump to Super C, that's when it becomes like so hard it's not really fun. That game is so hard that's upsetting. I haven't been upset playing the original Contra. Even though I'm getting killed a lot and I'm not doing very well, it's not upsetting. It's okay. But trying to play Contra Hardcore on the Sega Genesis, that is upsetting. Trying to play the Alien Wars on the Super Nintendo, that's upsetting. Those are upsetting games. What happened to the Contra series? My goodness. Alright, so did we go back far enough? I think so. 6 days ago, Mecha Menace. Right, so I like Ice Climbers. Its jumping collision detection between platformers and enemies is frustrating, but I can get down with the challenge. I like Mario Brothers. I think Mario Brothers Arcade does it better in these categories, and I prefer it to Ice Climbers. Yep, I'm with you on that. I'm not the right person to ask about feeling if there's a downgrade when going back to old games. I'm mostly in pursuit of playtime with old games in general. I'm pretty good at picking games that I like. Once I sit down, I'll be absorbed. It's my reality. There's no better system, super rumored in the distance. I am in the now, enjoying the game. What may seem counterintuitive at first, it's when a game's doing something impressive with the tech or has outstanding presentation amongst its peers that pops out to me for a moment. Opposite from the reason you specified, I became entranced with the tech. Most recently experienced this newly acquired plastic square, Sword Master for the NES. It does all things are possible on the NES, obviously. However, many games do it. And because of that, I go, this is a TurboGrafx game. It's not 16-bit, but but it's pumping all the pixels and blasting the square lines in PCM. I'll say that the only time I feel a downgrade is Atari. Mostly not with the 5200, but more with the 26 and the 7800. I have great games for the 2600 that resemble gameplay from later systems. However, playing even the more simple games for a while, like your suggested experiment, I have become entranced. It's about good gameplay. Without that, the square on the black screen is duller than a PC speaker sound. With duller than PC speaker sound, really stand out and make me not want to spend any time pushing it around. The 7800 sticks out because other things were doing better at the time, and I'm biased against its controller, lack of games that interest me, and proprietary power supply. I think you could swap it out for those old school RC chargers, but I never looked into it. Yep, I'll tell you what. Yeah, man. Games. Yeah, games. Cool. Good to hear from you, brother. Hope you're doing well. I tell you what, Mega Menace, I'm gonna come back to you because I know that that you show up again in the comments. Gaming Beast 82, good old Darabka. He writes, just an FYI, you wrote 279 instead of 379. Yeah, I did, didn't I? I'm noticing myself some things with getting older. It sucks sometimes, but it is what it is. Altered Beast, a bad game? I'm biased for sure. And sure, it's a black box early title, since it was the original pack-in game, but I would prefer this to Sonic 1, Shots Fired. I usually prefer beat-em-ups to platformers, because most platformers get frustrating too soon for me. It's cool that you're working on an RPG Maker project. I gotta go back and work on the next Quest game again, and stop being lazy. Been reading old comics in recent days, especially early Image comics like Spawn and Co. I avoid modern mainstream comics for sure. It's just cringe these days. I play a lot of retro games myself. I do notice a techno jump when I go from an older to a more modern game myself. Either way, keep trucking, broski. Thanks, man. Hope you're doing well. Don't feel the need to go back to finish the next quest unless you feel compelled to. I think it's okay to leave some of those old projects behind if you've just moved on with your life. You know, it's like, don't feel the need to go back and pick up an open bore project. You know what I mean? It's okay. We do other things now. Nothing wrong with that. Is that it from Sean? No, there's more. Yeah, okay, so there was a back and forth between Sean and Mecha Menace, and this is what I wanted to read. So Mecha Menace responds with, so we're both in agreement that Hyperstone Heist would have made a solid pack-in deal? And Sean writes, it would be if the Genesis would be released in 92, but it was released in 89, 88 in Japan, and from the very limited games they had, Altered Beast was the best choice. Ooh, shots fired. Mecha Menace writes, I'm contrasting against later pack-ins like Garfield Caught in the Act. The turtles were huge everywhere. I know that UK got TMHT pack-in for the NES. I saw Altered Beast early on, and it looked stiff and ugly. If I were to describe it as a parlance of the 2000s, I would say it was an MS Paint game. I get that it was a nostalgic place for a lot of people, but not me. Now that I think about it, Rolling Thunder has stiff controls, but I like how that one plays, so I don't know. I'm not going to give you too much pushback for downing Sonic 1, though it was the pack-in game that boosted Sega's status into the stratosphere. I played Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 before Sonic 1, so it felt stripped down, way stripped down comparatively. The music in 1, like most Sonics, I like the music in 1 like most Sonics, but Sonic 2 is a far better playing game. And they go on. Sean hits back with, to each their own for sure. However, calling Altered Beast is an exaggeration. It had legit nice sprite work. Right? I agree. It looked good. Parallax scroll, legit nice sprite work, parallax scrolling, and even voice samples. I think the controls are okay once you understand them. and they're certainly better than, let's say, Double Dragon. Action 52 is MS Paint quality tier, for example. It's not fair to compare Altered Beast, an early Genesis game, to later made Genesis games. Games that made the end of the console's life cycles are usually always better because of the better tech and better understanding of the limitations of the system. Sure, Sonic 2 and 3 are better than 1, and Garfield was put in its place because it had a license, not because the game was good. Like what you like and dislike what you don't. It's all valid, but I'm saying a game that had MS Paint quality graphics when it looked as good and was good, if not a great port of the original, is disingenuous. Ooh. Mecha Menace. I'm not being disingenuous. The advertising for Altered Beast didn't grab me because I wasn't familiar with the arcade game. I admit that the large sprites stood out, but the game looked slow and boring then. I didn't like how the characters and stages looked either. It was retroactively applying the MS Paint game term. At the time, I wouldn't have used those words to simplify my take on the game. That was exhausting to read. By the way, today is Altered Beast Day here in the dojo. I liked Altered Beast. It wasn't great. It was okay. I understood Altered Beast more when I went back and started playing Commodore 64 games. And like the Barbarian games and stuff like that, like Barbarian 2 and whatnot. Because Altered Beast appears to be like a game that was designed by people who knew and liked those games. And it's like, if you've played those old Barbarian games, it's like the ultimate Barbarian game. Of slow, clunky side-scrollers, it is the #1 slow and clunky side-scroller. That's okay. I like that game. I have it on the Sega Master System. I think the worst graphics on the Sega Master System really lends itself to Altered Beast. I would say if you haven't tried it, try it on the old Sega Master System. Except you, Sean, you'll hate it. Mecha Menace, brother, I hope you're in good health, man, and I appreciate you being part of the show. Same to you, Sean. Desm writes in, 8-bit and 16-bit consoles are like my default mode. I have two setups, one CRT and one flat panel with an OSSC and HDMI console. The top loader NES only gets used on the CRT, and the HDMI setup, I use an AVS system for NES games. When I play Saturn and Dreamcast or newer, it definitely feels like an upgrade to my senses. Playing NES games in HD just feels natural to me in a high-tech way. It's not how it looked originally, but it works on a high level of accuracy and crispy pixels that I feel like I'm living in a science fiction future compared to what I would have imagined as a kid. Thinking it's the fact that NES, SNES, and Genesis games occupy a monolithic place in my mind. They are held in the purest form of articulation of the medium of video games. Even really good PS3 games and so on cannot enter that pantheon of the greats in my perspective. So I can be wowed by better graphics, but the gameplay and pick up and play method just cannot be topped for me personally. Yeah, interesting way to put it about it being a monolith in time. I think you're right. Always good to hear from you, brother. By the way, if you're not following Desm on Twitch, he does some pretty slick DJ sessions. The only one who does that I would watch, I think, is Desm. Mecha Menace checks in again. You have to realize, CF, when I started going to garage sales, I thought I was going to find everything on my want list in no time, and I would have to give in and spend $20 to $30 on those top tier games like Gun Knack, or 80 or 100 for those more well-known titles, or rares like Bubble Bobble 2. Who could blame me for thinking that way when the videos I watched a few months leading up to the first day made it look like plucking pearls was the norm? It started off that way on the first day out. I picked up a Sega Genesis and some solid titles like a complete in box Rocket Knight and Battletoads and Double Dragon. On my way back from that sale, I picked up 2600, 27 complete in box titles, a loose Kaboom, and a bunch of accessories. The first sale where I picked up the Sega Genesis, I envied but passed on an expensive $150 complete Vectrex. I'd find it for $5 eventually, right? So it was my understanding that the NES, all the SNES games featured on covers of Nintendo Power would be in the same box. 7 out of 10 times I stumbled across an SNES. Well, I tell you, those plastic squares were stubborn about being found at garage sales or thrift stores. So these are the ones that are harder to find. Super Metroid, ActRaiser, either Final Fantasy, either Mickey's Magical Quest. It took me 3 years to come across my first Star Fox, though it was not for resale version. Either Earthworm Jim, any Mega Man game other than X1, Stunt Race FX, that hurts. Donkey Kong Country 3, Yoshi Safari. I can understand this one since it required an accessory, but I found the other Bazooka games well enough. Super Empire Strikes Back, Lion King evaded me for some reason. It took me 5 years. Maybe it's just in my area. Zoop. Didn't everyone buy Zoop? I didn't. But the way it flooded the market on every contemporary platform made it seem that I would see this game. I have yet to see one cartridge, though. And on that note, Faceball. Ken Griffey baseball games. I kid. These are in every box. Yeah, Super Nintendo. Different ecosystem. Some of these I'm not really surprised with, though. I'm not surprised you're not seeing Final Fantasy games everywhere. Because those that back in the day were super expensive. Yeah, you remember the square tax, right? Good to hear from you, brother. Hope you're doing well. Death Adder writes, favorite potato? Number 1, red potato. Number 2, sweet potato. Number 3, russet potato. Yes! That is the content that we are after here on TCR. Death Adder, I raise my cup of black tea to you, sir. I gotta say, though, you put red potato above russet potato. I take issue with that, sir. Light Studio says, buddy, I said I got to switch from the game store, not GameStop. Come on, don't go sending the mobs after me. Also, I suggest something simple like Panzer Studio 2.0 or Neo Panzer Studio. Sounds unoriginal, I know, but it helps acknowledge the legacy. Good point there. Good point. I kind of like the Dojo, personally. So just for the record, Sendu did not go to GameStop for his Switch. I wouldn't blame you if you did, by the way. Nothing wrong with that. Business is business. You go where you can go and with what cost. But you went to Game Store, so good for you, man. Hope you're doing well as well, by the way, Sendu. Hope things are going good for you, man. Gamer Fam Van Bing says, what controls keyboard Commando MS-DOS? I don't know. Andy Stardust writes, my brother and I used to play with this handheld so much. He's talking about the strange handheld pocket game player video I made a few years back. Pretty sweet, man. It's funny how these old, weird game devices come across our lexicon, and despite being like a low-quality device, being, a piece of junk, it can still carve out a piece of something important just because you came across it at the right time. And with that, boys and girls, that's TCR for the week. We are done. Stick a fork in it. Whatever it is you're doing, whatever you're facing in this crazy 2021 world we're in, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. I hope things are going good for you. Play a video game. Hang out. Have one on me, man. Take a moment for yourself. And whatever happens, I'm rooting for you. I'll see you next week.